Some fighters live and breathe off their professional record, and while a 10-year winning streak may be impressive, it doesn't always tell the full story. This is a list of fighters who've earned praise for their skill in the Octagon, even if their stats say otherwise. Welcome to INC, and these are 5 of the greatest fighters with losing records. For nearly 20 years, Mark Hunt has been one of MMA's most beloved fighters, renowned for his toughness and aggression even if he never had the results to match. After a successful spell in kickboxing, Hunt was thrown in the deep end when he made his debut in Pride, squaring off against the sport's all-time greats, despite having a handful of fights to his name. Hunt held his own against the elite, claiming wins over Vanderlei Silva and Mirko Krokop, but his limited knowledge of the ground left him vulnerable to submissions, including a 5-fight losing streak before joining the UFC in 2010. It was there that Hunt found his best form, a marked improvement in his ground game, steering him to 5 wins from his next 7 fights, and even fighting for an interim heavyweight title at UFC 180. Hunt's record can be softened due to the history of his opponents. Of the 27 men Hunt faced, 11 tested positive for performance enhancers in their career, leading Hunt to become one of the most vocal critics against steroids in the sport.
You know, why are we rewarding these fucking dickheads that cheat when we should be putting them and saying, hey man, you did something wrong, you cheated to get it, you took a shortcut. You're a cheating shortcut motherfucker, you shouldn't be here.
Hunt traded wins and losses for the rest of his tenure, before leaving the UFC in 2018 with 13 wins, 14 losses, 1 draw and 1 no contest. Hunt is currently a free agent and today seems more focused on internet memes than he does on improving his record. Maurice Smith is the only UFC champion to hold a losing record. Much like Hunt, Smith made his early career as an acclaimed kickboxer, holding the distinction of never losing a title fight in 10 years of competition, before transitioning to MMA with the Japanese promotion Pancrase. Smith's matches in Japan followed the same routine, dominating stand-up exchanges but clueless the moment the fight went to the ground. All of Smith's losses during this spell came by submission, including to future Hall of Famers Ken Shamrock and Baz Rutten. Despite a 5-7 record, Smith was granted a UFC title shot against heavyweight champion Mark Coleman. Coleman was unbeaten in his first 6 fights and considered one of the sport's most dominant fighters, and added with his wrestling background was expected to make easy work of Smith. Despite being taken down early, Smith used an active guard to avoid Coleman's ground and pound, wearing Coleman down in the process and taking full control when the match returned to the feet. An exhausted Coleman was easy prey for the rest of the fight, with Smith claiming a judge's decision in one of the biggest upsets in the sport's history.
And new UFC heavyweight champion of the world!
Smith remained in the sport till 2013 and was inducted to the UFC Hall of Fame 4 years later. Not bad for a man with a record of 14 wins and 14 losses. Tank Abbott was never the most technical fighter, but his wild persona and aggressive style made him an unlikely face of the sport. Abbott made his debut at UFC 6 against 400-pound John Matua. Most expected Abbott to use his wrestling background to overpower his opponent. The Californian, however, had other ideas on his mind.
Matua's taking some vicious shots to the head.
Tank
oh, that's
Matua
it.
Down, and that is all. He hit the ground very hard.
Abbott made it to the final before losing to Oleg Taktarov, sparking a run which saw him become the most prolific fighter in UFC tournament history. Over the next 3 years, Abbott secured a number of high-profile wins, including former tournament winner Steve Jenham and later earning a heavyweight title shot against Maurice Smith, thanks in part to his all-action style and willingness to win by any means necessary.
Worship hanging out to the Octagon, look out!
Tank wants to throw him out of the Octagon.
Worship raining down punches. Tank takes him down.
The run of form saw Abbott become one of the sport's most popular stars, appearing in the sitcom Friends before enjoying a short-lived spell in pro wrestling. When Abbott returned to the sport in 2003, his limited technical skill became apparent, winning 2 of his 10 fights before ending his career with 10 wins and 15 losses. Few fighters were more colourful than Charles Crazy Horse Bennett. Bennett was a staple of MMA promotions around the world, enjoying spells with Pride and Rise-In, where his colourful and outlandish persona made him a fan favourite. Bennett was open about his half-hearted attitude to the sport, seldom training for his fights, and with a noted disdain for the ground game. Such was the rarity of Bennett winning, he couldn't help but get carried away when it actually happened.
Oh! That's it right there! In the front of you! That's it! The fight is over! He's a Bennett! He's got it!
Bennett was also known for his feud with MMA legend Wanderlei Silva. The feud began after Bennett attacked Silva's team after a match at Pride in 2005, with Bennett long insisting he knocked out the axe murderer in the ensuing melee. Bennett's biggest win came in 2007 against future Elite XC champion KJ Noons. Noons was expected to make easy work of the Floridian, only for Bennett to score the upset with a vicious right late in the first. Bennett is currently on an 8-fight losing streak and currently holds 30 wins, 38 losses, and a criminal record that makes John Jones blush. Yoshihiro Takayama is considered the greatest fighter to never win an MMA fight. Prior to competing in the sport, Takayama was one of the biggest stars in Japanese pro wrestling, becoming the second man to hold all of Japan's heavyweight titles and showing surprising agility despite his 6'7" frame. In 2001, Takayama made his MMA debut against 6'1" Kazuyuki Fujita. Despite little experience, Takayama surprised pundits by keeping the fight competitive, escaping several dangerous positions and avoiding the knockout despite heavy knees to the head, eventually succumbing to a triangle 3 minutes into the second round. Takayama's career culminated at Pride 21 against UFC veteran Don Frye. Frye was known for starting his fights in aggressive fashion, but few at the Saitama Super Arena were prepared for what happened next.
Pride Fighting Championship demolition, and there's that right hand! They're cooking it up, that right hand! Takayama! Oh, look at this!
From then on, Frye and Takayama engaged in one of the wildest brawls ever seen in the sport, throwing strikes at a reckless pace, with both men bloodied and swollen moments into the contest. Frye would win the fight by first-round stoppage, but Takayama's brave performance saw him earn universal acclaim, with many still considering the fight one of the greatest in MMA history. In 2017, Takayama was left paralysed after a botched move during a pro wrestling event, with many MMA stars including Frye announcing a charity event to help pay his medical bills. Takayama ended his career with 0 wins and 4 losses, but not before securing his role in one of the sport's greatest moments. And now time for a few honourable mentions. Valentin Overeem never matched the success of brother Alistair, but his career had its share of highlights, including a win over UFC legend Randy Couture. Artem Lobov holds a 13 and 15 record, but how can you hate a man that does this?
What the hell is that?
Rachel Ostovich is 4 and 5 in her career, but at least the warm-ups are pretty good. This is the INC, and thank you for watching.